Hey there nation, welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander CheapSkate, and we are back with another episode of Saga of the 8 Points. This is our series of Warcry battle reports, and this is battle report number 10. This one is fought between my little sister Kiddo as well as myself. The Kiddo is playing the Beasts of the Median, an Untamed Beasts warband, and I am playing the Lords of Azure Skies, a Stormcast Eternals warband. So we're throwing this down at 1,000 points. It's just a match play game, and we're going to be seeing exactly which of these warbands is more deadly, the Untamed Beast that came standard with the Warcry box set, or my Stormcast Eternals. So that being said, let's get this battle report on a roll. We're going to play some background music real quick. If you want to see exactly what we're bringing for this one, go ahead and pause and take a look at your own leisure. So with that being said, let's get this battle report on a roll.
Crom, I've never prayed you before. I have no tongue for it. No one, not even you, will remember if we were good men or bad, why we fought, or why we died. No. All that matters is that two stood against many. That's what's important. Power pleases you, Crom. So grant me one request. Grant me revenge. And if you do not listen, then the hell with you.
Assemble the army!
Alright, so let's talk about the scenario rules real quick. As you can see here, we have our deployment set up. We have our terrain card on the very top. The deployment we're playing on this one is called Holdout. My little sister Kiddo is actually playing the red forces on this one, while I'm playing the blue force on the deployment for this one. The victory condition is called Blunt, and pretty much the objective is to eliminate your opponent's shield units, which is actually kind of rough for me because my shield units already deployed on the table, while the Kiddo shield deployments are deployed off to the side. Now for our twist, we originally drew the twist. We actually found favorable position for the card. So what that required us to do is draw two more twist cards, and then the Kiddo and I rolled off to see exactly who would actually win. In this case, the Kiddo got it. She got bitter rivals, and what this means is that you get bonuses for leaders attacking other leaders in this scenario. And that pretty much makes it the scenario rules for this one. Alright, so here's an overhead shot of the entirety of the battlefield. As you can see, the Kiddo, she has her hammer unit deployed right smack dab in the middle of the deployment area, and my shield unit making up Babalian Swiftsteel as well as Samus Stormsight. They're located in the center of the bottom right hand quadrant of the battlefield as well. And as you can see on the very top as well, I also have my dagger units also deployed up top with Horus as well as Bast. And pretty much what ends up happening is for the reserve phase, my hammer unit doesn't come on until round number 3. The Kiddo's shield units doesn't arrive until round number 2, and her shield units are up there in the top left hand corner with her first fang as well as 3 Plaids runners, so those are the models I'll have to eliminate. And then her dagger unit, which is her rock tusk prowler Ugla the Maw, as well as her beast speaker Tanya beast speaker, they will not pop up until round number 2. So pretty much what my plan is to hopefully destroy the hammer units, because those are the only units I actually fear in this warband. In my opinion, they're the only ones who are actually worth anything in terms of close combat. And then once I get rid of those hammer units, I'll then concentrate on the shield units and hopefully take those guys out and destroy them before the dagger unit arrives. And that pretty much is my battle plan on this one. So let's move on to deployment real quick. So in the center bottom right hand corner of the quadrant, I have my 2 shield units. I have Babalian Swiftsteel, that is my long strike raptor. He's a raptor prime who's equipped with a long strike crossbow. And then right next to him is my other long strike raptor, raptor. He's armed with a hurricane crossbow, and that is Samus Stormsight. And so those are my 2 shield units that I have to protect right here in the middle of the battlefield. On the top center of the battlefield is my dagger unit, that is Bast, my Griff Town on there on the left hand side, as well as Horus, my Aether Wing, on the right hand side. And finally, on the far left hand side is my hammer unit, which will not be appearing until round number 3, and those are my 2 Vanguard Hunters, that is Kato's Shadow Step as well as Tullius Virtus. And that makes the hammer deployment on this one. So with my deployment let's go ahead and talk about the Kiddo's deployment real fast. So making up the center of the deployment area is the Kiddo's hammer units, right leading that in the front. That is Veryl Hearteater, her leader, who's also a Hearteater for the member of the warband as well. And right next on the left hand side, that is Cleft Skull. Cleft Skull is a prey taker who's armed with a fanged axe. On the far left hand side, that is Cleft Jaw, who's a prey taker armed with a sawtooth blade. And that pretty much makes up the Kiddo's deployment for her hammer units. On the bottom of the map is the Kiddo's dagger units. She has Tenyet Beast Speaker, which is her Beast Speaker for a warband, and right next to her on the left hand side is Ugla the Maw, which is their Rock Tusk Prowler, and that makes it the Kiddo's dagger deployments. And finally, the far left-hand side is the kiddo's shield deployments, and those are the targets I will have to go after them. In the front, that is Mayim First Fang, that is the first Fang of this warband as well as 3 plains runners, that is Makat, Shuya, as well as Shroya. And that makes up the kiddo's shield deployment on this one. So with our deployment over with, we go directly to the top of turn number 1, and the kiddo and I roll off for initiative in the hero phase to see who will be going first. Alright, so that takes us directly to the top of turn number 1, and the Stormcast Eternals managed to get the initiative on this one for the hero phase. During the hero phase, the kiddo got 3 sets of pairs. She's got a pair of 3s, a pair of 2s, as well as a pair of 5s. She actually burned one of her wild dice in order to secure that pair of 5s as well. Meanwhile, I have a pair of 3s as well as a pair of 6s, and I burnt one of my dice as well in order to get that score. And that pretty much makes the hero phase. So with the hero phase over with, we skip the reserve phase and go directly into the combat phase. Alright, so right off the bat in the combat phase, I actually decided to activate Samus Storm Sights first. I have opened up with this Hurricane Crossbow. I actually have him fire twice with this Hurricane Crossbow. I actually burned my first pair of 6s in order to make sure that he gets the additional attack as well. So that way he's firing 7 shots in total directly into him. And I just wiped out the Heart Eater Varel right off the bat. Managed to get a couple of 6s in there as well as the rest of my normal hits. So because of that, the Heart Eater is dead. And just like that, my friend the kiddo, she has lost her leader for her warband. In response, my friend the kiddo then activates, I believe that it's Cliff's Skull, which is the Prey Taker's armor with a fanged axe. Actually burned a paradise in order to get Savage Fury to get +1 to the movement. Unfortunately for her, she was just kind of really far away from my warbands, so she has to spend both of her actions in order to close the distance and engage in close combat with Bailey and Swiftsteel, my Raptor Prime. So that is kind of a good for her because now that she's engaged in close combat, right, Raptor Prime cannot open fire with his long strike crossbow, and so his powerful shooting ability is pretty much nerfed at this point. But even though he is still addicted to close combat, he still has strength 4 attacks against a toughness 4 opponent, so I decided to burn another pair of dice, my last pair of 3s, to give him a bonus attack for Bailey and Swiftsteel. He attacks twice directly into Clef's Skull, managed to put 5 wounds onto that Prey Taker, so that guy's a third of the way dead, which is always a good thing. And then once again, the kiddo then also activates her second Prey Taker, Cleft Jaw, also spending a pair of dice in order to earn the Savage Fury movement, so that way she gets +1 to her movement, and she closes the distance and also charges that character directly into my Raptor Prime as well. So now he's fighting against 2 Prey Takers against 1. And since there's no more models from the Untamed Beasts Warband, and now the rest of the turn is actually dedicated to the rest of my miniatures. Alright, so for the rest of the combat phase, I activate Horus. I spend 1 action to move directly behind Clef's Skull, and actually, Cleft Jaw rather, and have him concentrate his attack against him, but unfortunately for me though, his attacks pretty much didn't do anything. He's only a strength 2 because he's a small little 8th wing. However, I did also activate my Gryph-hound Bass, and actually have him spend both of his move actions to move closer, so that way he can get closer to the Prey Takers, and hopefully give some support. And with that being said, that leads directly to the end of turn number 1. So here's an overhead shot of the entirety of the battlefield. As you can see, not much is really taking place. The kiddo is sending her forces directly into my shield units, hopefully to soften up a little bit, so that way when the rest of her warband does arrive, she can cause some damage that way. And pretty much we just have a melee taking place in the center, bottom right hand corner in the center quadrant there. And that pretty much makes up turn number 1. So with turn number 1 over with, we go directly to the top of turn number 2, and the kiddo and I roll off for initiative in the hero phase. So that takes directly to the top of turn number 2 for the Untamed Beast this time. The kiddo managed to get the initiative on this one. We both spent our wild dice in order to secure a single, so because of that we had to roll off to see who would go first. I rolled a 2, and I believe the kiddo rolled a 6, so because of that she will be going first. At the same time, we both have 2 pairs. She has a pair of 6s and a pair of 4s, while I have a pair of 5s as well as a pair of 1s. And so that pretty much makes up our hero phase. So with the hero phase over with, we go directly into the reserve phase. And in the reserve phase, the kiddo's shield units appear onto the battlefield as well. So that is Mayim the First Fang, as well as Makat, Shuya, as well as Shroya, her 3 plains runners. And they deploy right there in the top left-hand corner of the battlefield. And that pretty much makes the reserve phase on this one. So with the reserve phase over with, we go directly to the combat phase. And in the combat phase, my friend the kiddo tries to activate an extra bonus attack for Cliff's Skull, which is the Prey Taker armor with a fanged axe, and actually attacked, 7 times. Launched 7 attacks directly into my Raptor Prime. And unfortunately for the kiddo though, she rolled a bunch of 1s, 2s, and 3s, so because of that, she didn't actually score a single hit or wound against my Raptor Prime, which is pretty bad for her, but pretty awesome for me. Which is one of the nice things about Stormcast Eternals, because all of my guys are 5 defense standard, which is pretty amazing, all things considered. So, sensing blood in the water, I decided to activate my my raptor arm with a hurricane crossbow. That is Samus Storm Sight. I actually spent one of his actions to have him move up forward 4 inches. As well, and as with the same time when I activate his ability, I use the Hunter ability, the Tireless Hunter ability, which allows me to actually add 2 inches to his movement to close the distance to 6 inches. And then I'm open fire with this crossbow against Mayan the First Fang, but unfortunately for me, that wasn't able to cause any wounds. So because of that, the First Fang was totally unscathed from my attacks. So we go back to the center of the battlefield over here, and there's a couple of activations taking place here in this turn. So if you're wondering why there's a bunch of actions going on, that's exactly why. What ended up happening is that the kiddo then activated Cliffjaw, her Prey Taker with a Sawtooth Blade, spent a pair of 6s in order to get additional attack on that, so that way this guy had 9 attacks total. When it was all said and done, he was able to put 6 wounds onto my Raptor Prime. At the same time, I also directed both of my attacks directly into Clef's Skull, which is the Prey Taker on the right-hand side, who's armed with the Fang Axe. Unfortunately for me, though, I kind of flooded my rolls in those attacks, and all I managed to do is actually cause 2 wounds on that part, so not much really happened there as well. Now, Horus, of course, does also attack as well, but unfortunately for Horus, though, he wasn't able to do much of anything, so not much surprising is there. Over here on the left-hand side, just going to talk about exactly what happened to all the activations over here. The kiddo, all she really did is took Mayan the First Fang, as well as her 3 Planesrunners, Makat, Shuya, as well as Shroya, and she actually had him do double movements, moving across the battlefield as quick as they possibly can, because these are her shield units, so if they ever get caught within 4 inches of the table edge, they will be killed. So they just do kind of bum rush across the battlefield as quick as they can, because at the same time, while she is afraid of losing her shield units, she's also trying to destroy my shield units as well, and she has more fighters than I do. So it's a pretty good tactic, hitting straight towards my Stormcast Eternal with the Hurricane Crossbow, because that's one of my shield units as well. And for the very last activation, I do one of the movements actions for Bass, my Gryph-hound, to move up directly behind Cliff's Skull, and then I direct another series of action for his attacks directly into him. I also burn a pair of 1s as well, so that way he gets a bonus attack on his attack characteristics, and manage to kill off Cliff's Skull, manage to wipe off that Prey Taker, so now that's one less guy I really have to worry about. And with that being said, that brings us directly to the end of turn number 2. Alright, so here's an overhead shot at the end of turn number 2, taking it up from the top. As you can see, a lot of fighting is taking place on the far right-hand quadrant. At the same time, the kiddo is trying to move her forces as quickly as she possibly can across the battlefield to engage my shield units as well. So with that being said, we go directly to the top of turn number 3, and the kiddo and I roll off for initiative in the hero phase. Alright, so that takes us directly to the top of turn number 3, and the Stormcast Eternals managed to get the initiative on this one. When it was all said and done, the kid only had 1 single while I had 4, so because I managed to get the initiative on this one. The kiddo also used one of her wild dice to secure a 3-3 as well as a 2-2. At the same time, I burned one of my wild dice in order to secure a 6-6 because I plan on bringing some long-range pain with my shooting abilities. So with the hero phase over with, we go directly to the reserve phase. And the reserve phase, both Kaido's Shadow Step as well as Tulia's Virtus show up on the far left-hand side of the battlefield, because that is my hammer unit, so my 2 hunters are ready to do some fighting. And on the bottom of the mat, Ugla the Maw as well as Tendit the Beast Speaker also show up on the bottom of the table as well, and they're getting ready to do some chaos as well. So with the reserve phase over with, we go directly to the combat phase. Alright, so in the combat phase, the first thing I do is I activate Samus Stormsight. I have an open fire first with a triple ability, which is rapid fire, which means I get half the attacks of the ability dice. So because I get 6 attacks, I direct 6 of my attacks directly into Mayim the First Fang. And with that, I managed to plaster that guy full of arrows, so I managed to kill that guy right off the bat, and that's one less shielding warrior I have to worry about. And then for his second activation, I had Samus Stormsight target with normal 3 attacks directly into, I believe that is Makat. No, it's not Makat, that is Shuya. Managed to open fire onto that plane's runner as well, managed to put 5 wounds directly onto him, so that part was pretty awesome as well. So not to be outdone, the kiddo then activates her last Prey Taker, Clefjaw, and spends a 2-2 in order to give him a bonus attack for his very first attacks, and by the time it was all said and done, after all 9 attacks were launched, managed to put 22 wounds in total directly onto my Raptor Prime. So my leader now is 8 points away from being killed, and that was insane. I believe the kiddo rolled like, I think 3 6s and a couple of 5s up as well, so because I was able to just almost bring my guy down to his knees and manage to kill him, and it was pretty impressive seeing the amount of pain that that guy could actually roll off. So, I mean, Untamed Beasts, they don't hit very hard, but when they do hit, they hit like a ton, so that part was pretty crazy. So, fearing for the life of my leader, I then send in Horus, who spends one of his actions to charge directly into Ugla the Maw, which is the rock tusk prowler, and also for his second action, put an attack on them. Managed to put 2 wounds on him, which is actually kind of cool. One of my attacks ended up being a critical hit, so that part was pretty awesome. And at the same time, the kiddo also activates Shroya. Shroya, the Planeswalker, actually charges directly into my character and engages in close combat. So there's a couple of good reasons for doing that. First of all, it prevents my my Raptor with the Hurricane Crossbow from shooting, so now he has to fight in close combat, so I won't be able to do that. And at the same time, it also protects her from being shot at, which is really, really important, because otherwise I'm going to shoot that Planesrunner off if he didn't manage to get into cover or manage to engage me in close combat. I then activate Kato's Shadow Step, who moves a normal moon allowance of 4 inches forward, so that way he's within range of this crossbow, and he opens fire directly into Makat, which is one of the Planesrunner. That's the guy with the green hairdo. Managed to put 5 wounds directly onto him after it's all said and done with firing his crossbow, so that part is kind of cool. So, in order to protect her Planesrunner from being shot at, she decides to charge in that character. Her other Planesrunner, which is Shuya, manages to do a double moon directly into Stamus Sourcesight and actually engage her in close combat as well. I then activates Tulia's Virtus, who then moves up normal 4 inches as well to get within range of, Makat, and actually have him open fire with this crossbow as well. Managed to finish off that Planesrunner too, so that is 2 of the shield units now dead that I got to worry about in this battle report, so that part was pretty epic. So for this photo, this is actually a picture of several activations taking place for the rest of the combat phase. So the kiddo goes next. She activates Tinya, and Tinya the Beast Speaker actually spends one of her attacks to attacking 4 attacks with her blade, her 3 attacks directly into Horus. Unfortunately for her though, she wasn't able to finish off Horus with that first action, so because of that she had to spend a second action in order to finish off Horus once and for all. Managed to kill my Aether Wing, which is pretty sad. In response, I then activate my Gryph-hound Bass, who then moves one of his actions and then attacks directly into Cleftjaw. Managed to finish off the last few wounds onto that Prey Taker, so because of the Prey Taker with the Sawtooth Blade is now killed. And then finally, my friend the kiddo then activates Ugla the Maw, her Rock Tusk Prowler. She spends one of her actions to move up 6 inches directly behind Stamus Sourcesight, and then she also uses one of her triple abilities, which is called Pounce, which means that if that Rock Tusk Prowler ends within 1 inch of an enemy unit, you get that many ability dice off into damage, and she puts all 3 of those damage dice directly into Stamus Stormcast as well. The reason why I went after my my Raptor armed with the Hurricane Crossbow is because my leader, Billion Swiftsteel, was just too far away for her to actually activate. So because of that, she went after Stamus Stormcast as a result of that. So with that combat phase over with, that takes us directly to the bottom of the turn. So here's an overhead shot of the entirety of the battle at the end of turn number 3, and as you can see here in this photo, things are not looking very good for the kiddo. She only has 2 shield units left, and one of them is already halfway dead, which is pretty good for me. At the same time though, one of my other shield units is almost dead. It's about 8 points away from being killed, so that's pretty vulnerable. But at the same time though, I still have a second shield unit that are both very tough, and they both have a lot of wounds, so pretty much the odds are in my favor at this point. So at the end of turn number 3, we go directly to the top of turn number 4, and we roll off for initiative to see who goes first. Alright, so that takes us directly to the top of turn number 4, and the Stormcast Eternals managed to get in this one. The kiddo as well as myself managed to get singles on this one, so because I had to roll off to see who would go first, and I managed to get the initiative on that one, which is pretty cool. However, the kiddo does actually end up with 2 triples. She ends up with a 555 as well as a 111, and I end up with 3 pairs. I got a pair of 6s, a pair of 4s, as well as a pair of 5s, which is really going to help me out in this next portion of the battle report. So with that being said, we skip the reserve phase because reserve phase is over with, and we go directly into the combat phase. So during the combat phase, I then activate a pair of 4s onto Balian Swiftsteel, so that way I get a bonus attack with his long strike crossbow. Managed to hit, Tenyet, the Beast Speaker. Managed to put several wounds on that guy. However, I had to take a second action to open fire again one more time, and I managed to plop off that Beast Speaker no problem. So that is 1 less of the Untamed Beasts I really have to worry about. At the same time over here, my friend the kiddo then activates the Rock Tusk Prowler, decides to spend one of her 111s in order to get a bonus attack for the Rock Tusk Prowler, so in the end it ends up being with 9 attacks total, going directly into my Stormcast Eternal armed with a Hurricane Bolter, Stamus Stormcast. Managed to put 14 wounds in total onto that character, so that part is pretty rough as well, because now he's about 6 points away from being killed. So my 2 shield unit guys are actually pretty vulnerable to being killed up to this point because they have so many wounds accumulated upon them. Alright, so this photo is actually several activations into it, as we can see in this photo here. So what ended up happening is that the kiddo decides to, I decide to activate Tullius Vertus. I actually spend one of my ability dice to activate Tireless Hunter, so that way he gets 3 additional inches added to his movement allowance. He closes 7 inches right behind that character. I believe that is Shruya is who that is. Managed to kill that character off with my second action with my attacks, because hunters are beasts in close combat. So because of that, I managed to kill off that Planesrunner. At the same time, the kiddo then activates her other Planesrunner. That is, I believe that is Shroya is her name. So because of that, she was able to actually get additional attacks and managed to put up to 18 wounds directly onto my Stormcast Eternal. So because of that, my Raptor almost is close to death, only 2 points away from being killed, which is pretty devastating, all things considering. However, the rest of the turn is dedicated to me because I'm the only person left with any characters left in the battlefield. So the first thing I do is I activate Samus Stormsight. Managed to put, I think, 5 or 6 wounds directly into that last Planesrunner there that was actually attacking my characters. So that part was kind of nice. But the real killer actually was with my Gryph-hound. I burnt a pair of 5s in order to make him move up for 2 more additional inches, so 8 inches. So he runs across the battlefield and spends his last action to attack that Planesrunner and manage to plank off the last bit of wounds on that guy. Managed to kill the very last of the Planesrunners at this point, and also netting me a victory. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. This directs us to the end of the battle reports. With the Stormcast Eternals managed to secure the win on this one, and I eliminated all of my opponent's shield units, netting me the victory. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, go directly to the after action report, because this battle report is now officially over.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.
Sure, I could have stayed in the past. Could have even been king. But in my own way, I am king. Hail to the king, baby.
Alright, so that takes us directly to the after action report. This is the part of the battle report we talk about what went well, what went poorly, and what we can learn for the next time that we do battle. This is the after action report for Saga 8Points, battle report number 10, and this one ended being a victory for yours truly. In the end, the kiddo lost Veril Heartseeker, Tenyet the Beast Speaker, Mayim the First Fang, Cleft Skull, and Cleft Jaw, the 2 Prey Takers, as well as the 3 Planesrunners, Makat, Shuya, as well as Shroya. In the end, I only lost my Aether Wing Hortus, is the only thing I ended up losing. And to be perfectly honest, I found the Untamed Beasts to be a very underpowered warband, if I was to be completely honest about it. I mean, sure, these guys are pretty fast, but their defense and their strength are really below par. That's just kind of my opinion on it. And the reason why is because the kiddo was forced to wound me on 5s ups on most occasions, while I was able to strike back at 3 ups. So because of that, you know, they're kind of underpowered that way. Now, granted, Cleft Jaw's attack against Balian Swiftsteel was pretty impressive, but overall, that was a fluke. And I don't think that the Untamed Beasts have enough abilities or attacks to make them all that dangerous against my warband in particular. I have fought 10 games so far of Warcry, and in my opinion, the game is definitely designed for Warcry warbands to fight against other Warcry warbands. So the 8 Warcry warbands that come with the gaming system, I think that's what this game is mainly designed to play against. I do feel that the Age of Sigmar Legacy warbands are a little too powerful when you compare them against the Warcry warbands. When you look at their abilities and their stats, they're a little bit more overpowered. In the end, most of the dangerous Warcry warband that I fought against when I fought against these guys was the Splintered Fang, and that was about it. If I was to play Warcry with a Warcry warband that actually is vanilla to the game, it would definitely be the Splintered Fang, but in reality, if I'm given a choice to play whatever warband I want, I will always use my Stormcast Eternals hands down. They are extremely resilient, extremely deadly, and they have a really high resilience as well, so that's the reason why I would choose them. It would be interesting, however, to see how other Age of Sigmar Legacy warbands do against the Warcry warbands, the vanilla warbands that come with the game, but we will need to do other battle reports in order to see that, to see exactly how they kind of stack up against them. In the end, though, this was still a fun game against an excellent opponent, and as always, I am always looking forward to the rematch with that. So that's good to do for this one, you guys. As always, please feel free to like, comment, and or subscribe. Your guys' input is invaluable to us as always. Also, check us out on Facebook, Instagram, as well as blogger.com for all the latest, greatest hobby news. That's good to do for this one, you guys. We'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.